let's even stop for a second and say we're talking productivity, not busy, right? You don't have to work all day to be productive. You don't have to constantly be doing. But I define productivity as the needle moving actions. I call them Vixen vital actions because of my company that you do that move the needle forward. Introducing the Vixen Voice, a podcast for ambitious women entrepreneurs ready to move into their feminine essence, live their truth, and unlock their full potential. I'm your host, April Roberts, and each week I'll be interviewing inspiring women who decided to take a leap of faith to pursue their dream. Women who believe that they were born for something bigger. Hey there, just popping in quickly. It's April Roberts, and I wanted to thank you for being a loyal listener of the Vixen Voice. It means so much to me. And because of that, we're going to be popping in these little announcements because I want you to be the first to know what's going on at the Vixen Gathering. So if you haven't done so yet, click the link below and check out the Vixen Founders Collective. The members who are already in are raving, and we would love to have you join us in the ultimate business consulting, networking, and personal growth community for Gen X female founders. See you there. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of The Vixen Voice. You know that I'm excited every episode, but today we're talking about something that I totally nerd out about, productivity and using your time and energy wisely. In fact, if you haven't checked out my Own Your Time Masterclass, check it out, right? We run it at least once a month. And so my guests today also have offerings and ways that they can help you. So tune in. You may walk away as always with a couple of tips from today that improve your life, that help you understand you're not alone in your struggles. And if you feel connected to our guest, we're going to share ways that you can stay in touch with them, potentially hire them. Who knows, right? We never know what beautiful things come out of these conversations. So today, my guests are Glynn and Kristin Swanson. Lauren helps business owners get organized and productive by creating processes that help them manage their time. And she bases this on her 25 years in the federal government. So that's going to be a super interesting perspective that we're going to hear today. And Kristen is a coaching consultant who helps entrepreneurs create consistent revenue. We all like the sound of that, right? By expanding their reach, time, energy, and focus. And as I said, we're talking all things productivity. But first, welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us on the Vixen Voice today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Love it. I know we are all eager to dig into productivity, but before we get there, it is your first time on the show. So I'd love to ask Lauren, we'll start with you if that's okay. I always like to ask, we women are very multifaceted. We're all beautifully different and we all run our businesses different. So I love to kind of dig in and ask, what's a pivotal moment or story from your life that helped create like this badass woman sitting before us? So Lauren, I'll ask you to start first if you don't mind.
Sure. So one big pivotal moment for me was actually finding out that I had a benign brain tumor, which I feel like would probably be a pivotal moment for a lot of people. Found out I had it in 2012, found out it was really small and it wasn't endangering anything. So we kind of left it for a while, watched it to see if it would grow. It kept growing, eventually decided to get it out in 2019 because if I had left it in, I would have lost my hearing on my left side. And I didn't want to lose my hearing in my early 30s. That seemed unnecessary to me. So, but it's interesting because brain surgery really clarifies a lot of things for you. It really, makes you think about like what's important and what you want out of life and what you want to spend your time and your energy on. And especially after having brain surgery, you have very limited energy for a long time. I had brain fog way before everyone in the world figured out what brain fog was. And it really helped me understand that I didn't want to be working for someone else. I didn't want to be taking orders from someone else. I didn't want to be, especially at that time, I was working for the federal government, and I didn't want to be helping people who didn't want my help, because that's a lot of what I did as an Agile coach is I would go into teams, because their leadership said they needed my help, and then go in and try to help them be better at being teams. And they would be like, we don't want your help. Why are you here? I don't, and they wouldn't listen and they just wouldn't participate. And that's not fun as a coach. Like, you don't want to coach people who don't want to be coached. So having the surgery made me realize, like, this isn't what I want out of life. I don't want to be sort of forcing myself on people who don't want me there, and I don't want to be helping people that don't want my help. So I, at that point, decided to start building my business and start, reaching out to people outside of my company. And it really crystallized a lot of those choices that I made to start creating a business for myself.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing that story. It makes a ton of sense to me. I know you're huge on really focusing on what's important to your clients, helping them set boundaries, right? Intentionally focused planning and starting each day with a clear goal and sharing your story. I mean, it's obvious why these became so important to you, and they're important to business success. So it's a win-win. So thank you for sharing that. And I can't wait to dig into how you tie your values to helping your clients. So, Kristen, how about you? What is a pivotal moment in your life that helped create this amazing woman that I'm speaking to now?
Well, it's funny because it's sort of similar. Well, not funny, but it's sort of similar on the health front. So
Yeah.
I am a breast cancer survivor, and it was after being diagnosed with cancer, there was a couple of things. So number one is I had been putting off my business for a long time, kind of dabbling in it. It was a side hustle, doing it with a part-time job, but not fully jumping in. And it wasn't until that like wake up call that I realized we don't all, there's a lot of this like someday when I have more time, I will do X, Y, and Z. Someday when my kids are grown, someday when this project is over, there's always that. And there was always that for me, and I was putting it off. And so it kind of woke me up to, we might not all have a someday. What are we waiting for? And you don't have to do it all overnight, but just start doing it. So that's kind of why one of the reasons. The other reason why it was a pivotal mindset shift for me was because with the cancer, I always thought that the doctors would then tell you what to do for your treatment, right? You have breast cancer, here's the treatment plan. But what I was frustrated by was, and looking back, it's kind of okay with me now because I feel like I made a good decision, but it was, you could do a lumpectomy, you could do a mastectomy, you could do a double mastectomy. Here are all the percentages. Here are the things that, you need to consider. Now go home and make your decision. When you are just, not in a good mindset place after being diagnosed with cancer. And so once I really kind of got quiet with myself and felt so frustrated after some, anger about not being guided, then I was writing in my journal one day and I just wrote, what do I want my legacy with this cancer to be? What do I want my kids to remember? And I got super clear that I wanted them to remember that I had cancer, but that's all I wanted them to remember. I didn't want them to remember me being worried all the time and stressed out and is there a reoccurrence, all these things. So I decided to do the full double mastectomy. And even my closest loved ones kind of questioned that. Do you really need to be doing that? But I felt super clear within myself. So I believe we have the answers within or from your higher power or whatever it is. And if you get quiet enough in a very loud, distracted world, that's hard, you can let them come through. So that's a lot of what I help clients with also.
Yeah, I love that because I base my coaching, consulting, and also I do spiritual healing around the same thing that women know the answers. They just need the safe space and the guidance and the quiet, reflective time to get there. Lauren and I were chatting about how we run our master classes as more workshop style, and that's part of it, right? If you're going to do this, walk away with something in hand because your time is your most valuable asset, your time and energy, in my opinion. So I love that. And not to the degree of the two of you, but I had a health crisis as well in 2013, which really made me reevaluate how I spent my time and leads to a lot of what I coach today. So I'm super interested to dig into this. And, I got chills from both of your stories. So thank you for sharing. So I want to start with this because Kristen, this made sense to me as you were sharing your story, because you told me that you helping your clients understand the difference between resistance and procrastination, right? So can we
Yes.
kind of dig into that? And Lauren, I'm sure you can add to this. Like, let's talk about that, and maybe what do you see with your clients that gets in the way of being productive, energetic, focused, right? Because and let's even stop for a second and say we're talking productivity, not busy, right? You don't have to work all day to be
Mm-hmm.
productive. You don't have to constantly be doing, but I define productivity as the needle moving actions. I call them Vixen vital actions because of my company that you do that move the needle forward, right? So I guess first let's start with how do y'all define productivity or put those guardrails around it with your clients? And then I'd love to dig into resistance versus procrastination. So, Lauren, can we hop to you? How do you define productivity with your clients?
Yeah, so to me, with my clients, productivity is working on the things, like exactly like you said, that move the needle. Not the busy
Mm-hmm.
work, not the things that you think you should be doing, but the things that actually provide value, the things that actually move your business forward. And what's frustrating about that is a lot of business owners don't know what those things are. They don't
Mm-hmm.
know what their priorities are. They don't know what their bigger vision is for their business, for their life. And so they're doing the things that they think they should be doing, but they don't know what those actual value creation activities should be. So I work a lot with my clients to figure out, what do you want your life to look like? Where do you want it to go?
Yes.
What do you want your business and your life, and how should they intermingle? And then we kind of take that step back to figure out, okay, what are the things that we need to do to actually get to those goals? And anything that you're doing that doesn't move you towards those longer term goals is a waste of time, because it's not moving you forward, it's not creating value, it's not getting you where you want to be. So my whole process with my clients involves figuring out that bigger vision first, and then using that
Mm-hmm.
to inform, what does productivity actually look like for me, and what should I be working towards in order to achieve those bigger visions and goals.
Yeah, I love that. And Kristen, I'm going to go to you next, but I call it the compelling vision of the future. And I do the same with my clients because I work with all female entrepreneurs, and I feel especially women are purpose driven, but most entrepreneurs are. And so when they have that big North Star, the big purpose, it helps them overcome the things that get in the way. But Kristen, how about you? What would you add to that conversation about productivity?
Yeah, I would just add, I mean, I often like to ask them what it means to them because people
Oh,
have
I like
different
that. Yes.
definitions. And if that's even something that they're seeking, what does it mean to them, right? And then I would just add, I always talk about working on what matters most. And usually you know what that is. If there's a little, you might have to do a little bit of digging. And then focusing on high leverage actions and the things that if you
Mm-hmm.
work on this, it's going to make everything else easier is the only other thing I would add. Yeah, but I love what you both said.
Yeah, I love the idea of leverage, and it's something not spoken about enough. Like, people don't really think, "Oh, okay, I have this choice or this choice, but this choice is going to catapult me, or I already have momentum here. How do I leverage this?" Right? It takes a lot less energy to do that. So I love that. And then we'll get to the resistance versus procrastination, because I loved what you were sharing with me about that. So talk to us about how you help your clients when it comes to that, Kristen.
Yeah, so this one's a little nuanced. So you would need to,
Go for
I
it.
really need to talk to somebody
Yep.
in order to hear the difference. But with some very simple questions, you can get to the answers. And it's a little bit about resistance comes when you go after those big things that I was talking about, right? Like you have a dream to do this. You feel called. And a lot of times it's, I know I will do this. I'm just not doing it yet.
Right.
So it's that certainty that I am going to do this goal. Like I am going to launch a business. I'm going to move into a different line of business is one that I work with a lot of clients on. Leave my bread and butter. Like this is a successful business. It's going well and go into something else. That's often scary. So it means taking a big leap. When you're taking a big leap, it comes with a ton of resistance. So what I like to help my clients with is moving through that discomfort. It's really just
Mm-hmm.
discomfort, which is a
Mm-hmm.
feeling, and you can move through feelings and teaching them how to do that. Whereas procrastination, and often people call it procrastination, but when you really get down to it, you can uncover that it's resistance. So there's different kinds of procrastination, but one being avoidance. So when you're procrastinating because you're avoiding feeling a feeling of I'm not good enough, I'm not ready, who am I to do this? A lot of times I'm helping people with being present on social media. So there's that feeling of what do I have to say that's different than anyone else? So these are the kind of mental stories that we tell ourselves. When it's that, I define that as resistance. And so helping them move through that. Whereas sometimes procrastination can be because it's something that is a mundane task that maybe you want to delegate. It's
Yeah.
like your bookkeeping or your taxes or something that is for you. I mean, some people love that and keep that if that's your strength, but it's the things that you dread doing and then you're procrastinating, putting them off. That's kind of how I define the difference.
I love this concept because I work with mainly female entrepreneurs over the age of 40. And so, consistent themes are aversion to social media, even though they kind of know they need it. Like they don't love technology, so not dealing with linking things. And then a third big thing is energy, because honestly, I'm 48. Like I'm not going to work till 2 in the morning like I did when I was 28, right? Like, I mean, one, I have no desire, and two, I honestly don't have the energy to pull that off and show up the next day at full capacity. So I love that you touched on social media. And I just wanted to pause for the audience to hear that again, because I see so much resistance when it comes to social media. And I love this concept of not just pushing through, but digging into the why, because that's the importance of coaching, right? Like, why are you procrastinating? And then I love how you talked about, the mundane things, because one thing I do when I first work with my clients is like, in the next week, I want you to note everything you do that gives you energy and everything that sucks your energy, right? And that's the delegation, like you talked about. So I don't know why I feel it's important to repeat, because in my experience, a lot of times people like beat themselves up for these things. And so you want to know, hey, it's normal. We all do it, okay? Look at it as a signal that maybe you should move in this direction or maybe you need to go deeper. So, Lauren, I'd love to hear, what are like some common obstacles that you work with your clients on?
Yeah, so mine actually are more on the technical side. They're more
Love
of
it.
the, I don't know how to post to social media. I don't know how to figure out what I want to say. I don't know how to make this easier for myself. So I work with my clients to create processes, create workflows, create tools that make this easier. Maybe we batch our social media posts on the days that we're feeling really energetic and excited. And maybe we set up a schedule for ourselves so that it's a lot harder to procrastinate if you have, not that it's impossible, but it's a lot harder to procrastinate if you have a set schedule. Like every Monday I'm creating content for the following week, and every Tuesday I'm meeting with clients, and every Wednesday, you have a set schedule. So it's a lot easier for you to set expectations for yourself, to understand, and also to stick to it, because once you get in that rhythm, it's a lot easier to keep it going and keep the momentum going. So I work with my clients on, how can we make this easier for you? How can we make it a system? How can we automate it potentially? How can we delegate it, just like you said? Or are they even things that we have to be doing? Like, do you have to be on social media at all for your business? Because some businesses don't really need to be. They benefit more from in person. So figuring all of that out is really key before we start fighting against this energetic resistance to doing some things. How can we make it easier? How can we, automate it? Like I said, maybe we start using AI a little bit to inspire us. Now, we shouldn't necessarily be using AI to do the work for us. But, if I'm like, I just don't know what to write for this social media post, then I teach my clients like, all right, let's go to ChatGPT and ask it to inspire us. And we're not going to copy and paste it, but we're going to let it help us get over that block. So I teach them the tools, the systems, the processes for working through that, so that it doesn't become this roadblock for them in the moment. So they're not thinking, oh, it's 4 o'clock on a Tuesday and I haven't posted to social media all week. What am I going to say? It's, oh, I already pre-scheduled everything out. It's all ready to go. I don't even have to think about it. I should check in and look at the comments and respond, but I don't have to show up all of the time for myself because I've already planned it ahead and I have a system.
No, I love that, because having systems and processes is such a great way to get past procrastination and letting things drop through the cracks. So And it's so practical, but if someone hasn't done it, they don't know how. And some of us aren't built for it. Like I could tell you exactly what I want the system to look like in the SOP, but if you want me to do the middle part, no. Like I like to say, I'm a great idea generator and a great editor. I need someone doing the middle part, right? And that's
The
like
execution in the middle.
exactly. I am not a good executioner. Like I show up. So no, that's why, I mean, what you do is super valuable because there are plenty of visionary entrepreneurs that's how they operate, right? Like they're not so good. And especially if you're a solopreneur and you haven't built out that team yet, before you build out the team, get the SOPs in place, get the systems in place, get the processes, because one, you may not have to hire as many, and then two, they are set up for success. And Kristen, I know you have a thought here, so hop in,
Yeah,
please.
I just wanted to add something just to what Lauren was saying and then add on top of what April said in terms of delegate. So execution, there's something about delegating the parts, like have the systems,
Yes.
like Lauren said, have the systems, put them in place, and then find the spot that's the real sticking spot for you. Sometimes that is literally hitting publish on
Yes.
the social media posts. So if, you have a virtual assistant who does that part, you do the recording, you get it all set up, you do the editing, review, like April said, and then they do that part. Sometimes that, I call that like shortcutting the resistance by just having somebody else do it, because you don't have to feel that feeling that you feel that sometimes isn't fun for some people.
No, I agree. In fact, it's so funny. I was talking to someone and they said in creating content, they were like, yeah, somebody told me that on the third try, you should just send it. Like, it's not going to get any better.
Yeah.
Quit thinking about it. Like, you get three tries
Yeah.
and then you just hit the button and, like, you don't think about it
Yeah.
again. But, like you said, if you delegate hitting the button, like, you're not overthinking it. So, if it is a
Yeah.
sticking point, like, I love that concept because I always just think, like, I like to call it WD-40, which I'm aging myself. If we have 20 somethings, they have no idea what WD-40 is. But like, how do we like grease it so there's no squeaks, right? Or like, I like to imagine business as an assembly line. Like, where's the breakdown in the assembly line? And let's just like solve that problem and keep on going. Because sometimes like we make such a big deal and it's really just the small little tweak that we need to do in the middle. And the whole assembly line is like going well. So I love that so much. So now, Lauren, I love this conversation. Thank you, women, because I know you're both very practical in working with your clients, but it sounds like Kristen's a little more intuitive, digging into the problem, and then Lauren's like, okay, we're gonna GSD, get stuff done, right? That's my PG version. Because I used to tell my team, this is a GSD meeting. We are not discussing ideas. We are discussing GSD, right? Like, I think it's so important to have both parts to a business. But Lauren, what's interesting is as we were chatting before we came on, you were talking to me about like the importance of boundaries. So share with us like, a little bit about that.
Yeah, and especially as women, we do not always necessarily have the boundaries that we should, but I like to help my clients create systems that then create boundaries. And the importance of boundaries is that you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your person, but you're also protecting, if you have clients, you're protecting your other clients. Because if you let one client trample over your boundaries, then that's maybe less that you can give to another client that you have. And is that fair? So it's important that you understand that boundaries aren't just for you. If that's not enough for you, then boundaries are also there to help you with how you help other people. So I help my clients create technological boundaries we set up maybe a calendar booking system, and they only open their calendars on 2 days a week. They don't open them, wide for 40 hours a week. You can only book with them 2 days a week. That's a good way to set boundaries. I also have my clients set up like CEO days during their week. So maybe a half a day a week, they are sitting and just thinking about sort of the bigger picture of their business. They're not taking client meetings. They're not looking at their email. They're not talking to their VA. They are just thinking through that big picture for them. And that's a boundary that they have to set, and they do that in their calendar so that they are not letting other people sort of trample over that boundary. So boundaries are really key for how you help yourself, but also how you show up to help others, and then you can create systems to actually enforce those boundaries. There was one podcaster I was listening to that she actually recommended creating like a fake assistant if you can't afford a real one, or like a Dave in accounting is what she kept calling it. And so if you're like enforcing your refund boundary, those emails can come from Dave in accounting, and then he can hold up your boundaries for you. If you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself, you can always blame, oh, sorry, that's Dave. Like, that's just how he is. He's a stickler for following the rules. Like, if you really need to pass it off to someone else and you don't want to sort of take on that blame it on Dave in accounting, whether or not Dave actually exists. So there's lots of different ways that you can create and use systems to sort of enforce those boundaries around you and around your business.
Yeah, I love it. And a lot of what you're talking about too until the end is time boundaries, which people don't often think of time boundaries. They think of it as a difficult conversation they have to have with someone. Well, it's not always. Sometimes it's managing your own calendar, right? And Kristen, I knew you were excited about this topic, so I want to hear from you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of around similar to time is I help a lot of clients with like distraction boundaries.
Yes.
So silencing your phone and closing your browsers when you're working on those high leverage tasks. And what I like to help people also with in terms of the people boundaries, like you talked about, April, is to just get in touch with what you are okay with and what you are not okay with. And
Yes.
you know that, again, it's kind of that you have the answers thing that we talked about in the beginning, but feeling that even in your body, like, is that a full body yes? You usually know. And if you're saying yes, but you really feel yourself wanting to say no, those are the areas to look at. And then it's similar also to what I said earlier, which is feeling that discomfort, like just saying it, or even just putting space between your yes and your answer. So I need to get back to you. Let me sleep on it and I'll get back to you when somebody
Yeah.
asks you to do something.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I coach on having that difficult conversation, right? Sometimes when it's a little bit more uncomfortable, and you have to prepare for that. So if you're cornered, I mean, I like to say just have bicycle language. Like you said, something you said, like, oh, let me sleep on that and I'll get back to you tomorrow. But I'm a huge fan of setting the time and the place to have the conversation so that you can mitigate your mindset, your emotion, your energy, right? Like set yourself up for
Yes.
success because I wake up at 4:30 most days. So if you want to have a difficult conversation with me at 4 p.m., it's not going to go so well, right? Like let's have that difficult conversation in the
Yeah.
morning. And other people are night people, so they might want to have it in the afternoon, but almost I don't know. I believe in setting it up for a win-win. So obviously set it up for success for you, but consider the other person too. Because my theory is
Yeah.
you're having this conversation either because you want to keep this person in their life or they're important to you or you need them in business. And so, otherwise in today's world, everybody just ghosts each other. You would just ghost them if you didn't want to have this conversation. So really changing that perspective. But I love that. So let's talk about goal setting. I know you touched on it, Lauren, when you were chatting, but I do think it's almost impossible to set boundaries, to set processes, to systematize, to automate if you don't know the end goal, right? How can we, because these are almost all reverse engineering. So for me, it's really important to know your core values, your goals, and what's priority right now. So, Kristen, what do you think on this topic of goal setting? And then we'll let Lauren wrap it up since she chatted earlier.
Yeah, so I really like to talk to everyone about desired outcomes. So what do
Mm-hmm.
you want the
Love it.
end goal to look like? And a lot of times that is further out perhaps than your, 1 year goal or something. So starting from there and then, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, reverse engineering. So picture yourself in that setting where you have the desired outcome and then kind of take a look back on if I am my future self and I'm projecting myself forward into having this business launched or meeting this revenue goal or whatever it is, then look back. I ask people to take an imaginary look back on how you could have gotten there. What are some possible steps you could have taken? And that gives you clues in terms of those like shorter term steps to take towards the longer term goal. Usually people know the desired outcome in the end that they want, or how they want to
Mm-hmm.
feel is another place to start.
I also feel it's easier to project into the future. Sometimes it's overwhelming. What's my next step? Like, so to go
Yeah.
backwards seems to be easier. And Lauren, I'd love to hear your take on that because you shared with me, like, you like to start each day with a clear goal, right? So what is your thinking on, like, what's the time space continuum for goal setting? We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually agree with a lot of what Kristen said. It's easy, not easy, but it's easier to know where you want, it's easier to know if what you're doing in the moment is going to get you where you want to go, if you know what the dream outcome looks like, exactly like you said. So I like to work with my clients to figure out that dream outcome, like I said, but then I work with them and say, okay, what's the next step to get there? I don't want to build all of the steps in the meantime because things are going to change, your vision may change, your business may change. So rather than kind of working all the way backwards, I say, okay, what's the next step for us to get there? And I actually did a whole podcast series on goal setting, and one of the episodes was
Love it.
about why annual goal setting doesn't work for online business owners. It really needs to be the shorter time periods because business changes so fast.
Yes.
And so I always recommend that my clients look at the next 90 days. What are we going to accomplish in the next 90 days? What would you feel good about? Just like Kristen said, what's that dream outcome? I phrase it as, what does success look like? What would success look like for you in 90 days? And then let's figure out, what are those milestones we need to get there? What are those tasks that we need to do to actually get there? And then we can build out a plan. So if you know in 90 days you want to write the first chapter of your book, then we work backwards from that. Okay, then I have to have the whole chapter written in 90 days. So then I have to have the full outline written in 30 days. I have to, figure out the topic of the chapter, whatever those steps are, you can sort of reverse engineer it backwards. And then you can put that into a tool. So if you're using something like Notion or Asana or even something like Trello, you can say, all right, by this date, I want to have this done. All right, let me put that in my calendar. I'm going to schedule out the time that I'm actually going to work on this thing so that I actually have a solid plan for reaching the goal. Because I find that a lot of entrepreneurs can do the vision, they can do the big goals, but it's the execution of the tasks that really starts to trip them up because they feel like it's something that's in addition to the work that they're already doing. And they feel like it's something that is above and beyond their actual job and their work. And the right goals should integrate with what it is that you want. It should integrate with your work. It should integrate with everything that you're already doing. And if what you're already doing isn't moving you towards those goals, then why are you doing it? And Kristen, I know that you had something that you wanted to add to that.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I just love this conversation because I totally agree that it's like in that middle part, the action steps or something
Mm-hmm.
where people get tripped up. And then I also love what Lauren said about the plan often changes. So I need to read that
Yes.
article you were just talking about. But what I like to teach people to do is it's the consistent action. Like I don't care if it's the right action. I don't care if
Yes.
it's in the right order. Consistently take action and keep showing up towards that goal. And then usually that's when the universe kind of shows up to support you and things kind of start to work out because it's like, oh, she's doing this. We're going to keep going, and it's consistent instead of like this dabbling and then leaving it for a month and then coming back. That's where things go wrong.
I love that you called it like consistent action because that's actually the next step that I talk about is habit stacking and habit building and, that book Atomic Habits and how do you build it into your everyday life. And, it's a combination for me of habits versus time blocking and how do you balance the two so that they're intentional and that they're actually working you towards your goals. So yes, all on the same page about all of that.
No, I love it. I think we all operate very similarly, but I'll share something funny. The reason I love hosting and guesting, besides just making an impact on other women, is I learn something every conversation. And Kristen, you mentioned sometimes you just want to delegate hitting the button. So, Lauren, when you started talking about putting it in Trello, my body literally recoiled. Like, I hate spreadsheets. I hate Trello. Like, you give me a beautiful dashboard I can run my company off of. Amazing. I will run with that all day long. wrong. But if I have to input the data to get there, like it's a losing proposition. So again, just be honest with yourself about these things. And you may not be at a place where you can yet delegate. So like you said, do it at a time where you have more energy for things that suck it. and then when you have time, you delegate this. So no, this is awesome. I love this conversation. Unfortunately, we are running close to time, and I believe in honoring everyone's time. So, Lauren, quickly, you mentioned your podcast. Do you want to share the name with us?
Oh, yeah, I guess that would be helpful. It's called the Process to Profit podcast, and it's available in both video form on YouTube and then also on all your regular podcast apps as well.
Love it. And then I think you have an offer for our audience today, or if you want to share what you're working on or the best way for them to get in touch with you quickly so they can keep following you.
Yeah, so I'm most active on Threads. I know that that's not the most popular app right now, but I'm most active on Threads. I'm loving Threads. It feels like early days of Twitter when it was actually fun to be on. But anyway, I'm Lauren G. Consulting on Threads, so you can go and find me over there. And then I do have an offer for your audience. I offer a VIP day if you just want to get yourself organized, if you're feeling really overwhelmed by all the work that you have to do, and it just feels like due dates keep sneaking up on you and things keep rolling over to the next day and the next day and the next day, then that's what my VIP day is for. We're going to get you organized. We're going to get you prioritized, all the things that we actually talked about today, and get you set up with a plan and a schedule to actually move forward. And your audience can get $250 off of that session by using the code VIXEN. It does have to be all capitals. So VIXEN will get you $250 off, and that is at laurenglynn.com/VIP. And that's GLYNN. I know some people spell it with an I and an E, so it's GLYNN/VIP, code VIXEN to get $250 off that VIP session.
Love it so much. And by the way, all this info is in the show notes. And if you don't go to the show notes, like Lauren and I were chatting, we never do, even though we have podcasts, you can go to vixengathering.com/podcast, hit subscribe, send us your email, and guess what? It shows up in your inbox every Tuesday and Thursday. So super convenient. So by the way, if what Lauren just described to you, a day to get yourself organized and fix all these cracks in your foundation, sounds like a dream, we're going into the holidays. What a beautiful gift to give yourself. So think about it and check out Lauren. And Kristen, I'd love to ask you, what do you have going on today? And what would you like to share with our audience?
Yeah, so you can find everything at KristenSwansonConsulting.com, and that'll be in the show notes too, right? And you can get my free Make It Happen planner right there on the homepage. Oh, cool. And then you'll also find out about, I usually do quarterly workshops that are free that come with a planner to get prepped for that, and even if you can't make the workshop. And then I am on Instagram mainly, so it's Kristen_Swanson_. Kristen with an I, and yeah, all the updates are there. So yeah.
I love it. What amazing free resources. So in the spirit of giving of the holidays, go check out these ladies and everything they have to offer. So beautiful. I wish we had more time. I think we're going to do a part 2 if y'all are up for it. We'll do a part 2 to this episode. I love doing that because there's so much that we barely touched on that we can go so much deeper. But thank you both for joining. I like to wrap up with a quick little message for our audience. So what would you like to share as we wrap up today?
Well, I guess I'll go first. I would love to share that systems don't have to be overwhelming. Systems should not be overwhelming, and systems can actually help you achieve all of those goals that we talked through today, and that feeling better in your business, feeling out those boundaries and everything. So systems do not have to be scary or intimidating. That's the message that I would like to share.
I love it. Okay. Important one. And Kristen?
Yes. I just want to share that if you have these big, I call them soul-led goals that come from within you, then start taking action now and don't wait. That's kind of what we started with in terms of my story, but it's always going to feel overwhelming. There's always going to be things that are standing in your way. And so just start with those small actions and then keep taking consistent action. And get help. Don't be afraid to delegate and hire support or have mentors or even peers that are also entrepreneurs that can help hold you accountable. I think accountability was something else that is huge.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
totally agree. Thank you, ladies. Today has been amazing. And for everyone listening, you know that I always say the world needs more love. So this time I'm going to ask you as we go into the holidays, how can you love yourself more? How can you love your business? How can you love those soul driven goals? And maybe it's checking out Lauren's VIP day. Maybe it's checking out all of the resources that Kristen shared with us today. Remember that taking care of yourself and taking care of your business is a form of love as well. So have a great one, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so future episodes are automatically downloaded directly to your device. And if you want access to today's show notes, including links to all the resources we mentioned, visit vixengathering.com/podcast. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week for another episode of The Vixen Voice.